My name's Rhiannah Balcombe, and I'm a barber and also co-owner of Underfound.
Okay, that's really nice. So right now we're currently in Underfound. We've spent the day filming with you. Tell me a little bit about this place. What is it? What does it represent?
So Underfound is very complex, but it's a place basically where hair, music, fashion and lifestyle all come together under one roof. We have barbers, but we also have independent fashion designers, and we have live music as well. So we are just a hub of creativity.
And where are we right now in the UK? Let's situate it.
Underfound is situated in just outside of Manchester, so we're in Altrincham. So did used to be part of Cheshire, but now is part of Trafford. But it's no man's land when it comes to whoever you talk to. So we're just outside of Manchester.
I think it's a bit cooler probably to be associated with Manchester than it is Cheshire.
Yeah. I think it depends whether I think the location, whether it's Cheshire or Manchester. I think they're both equally cool in their both rights, but I think Manchester is such a hub of creativity, so it's good to be linked just outside of that.
What was the reason for setting this place up? What was like your why?
Yeah. So the reason why myself and Andy, my co-owner, came up with the idea of Underfound, it was more about there is nothing out there that combines hair, fashion, music and just creativity as a whole. You have, fashion outlets and you have barbers and, you have art galleries, but they all work cohesively together as under one roof. And it's really interesting to sort of bring that together, and the whole reason for that is because one, it's never been done before and we wanted to prove that it could be done, and we feel like there was just a real gap in the market for it where you could bring everything together and somewhere for everyone to go, really.
Yeah, wicked. I was going to ask if you saw a gap in the market, and I think you're so right, because let's just take fashion and hair for example. They're one thing. It's self-expression, isn't it? So it makes sense that you can go to a place that has all of these things in one spot. Like, you can't. Can you really have one without the other? You can, but it makes more sense. Like, people's identity, I think a lot of the time is like how they express themselves externally to the world, and that's everything. That's your fashion and how you choose to do your makeup and wear your hair.
Oh, 100%. I agree. Everything goes cohesively together. So when you step into the store, it's not just a fashion retailer, it's not just a barber's, it's not just a music venue. It's the whole journey is a 360. And when you think about it, it does all come together. Like you were saying, it's all about, look at Fashion Week, for example, right? You have models that all come together, you've got designers that come together, you have to have makeup artists to do their makeup, you need hairdressers to do their hair. But then that's the only time that all those things come together, but in day-to-day life they come together as well. So why isn't there a shop like that? And that's what we've created. We've created basically catwalk, film, TV, all under one roof that all work together and always have done, but it's never been brought together, and that's really what we've tried to achieve. And I hope that you guys have seen that today, as it's been throughout the day.
I wanted to talk about you being a barber, which is just wicked, and I've loved today just watching you do your thing, because it really is so expressive, and you can see your character coming out in how you interact with these clients and how you're physically cutting their hair. So I wanted to ask how did that journey begin? What's your story with being a barber?
Okay, so how my hair journey began, actually it was when I was 5. So I wanted to be a hairdresser / barber when I was 5 years old, and I was sitting combing my granddad's hair, and my mum's actually got a VHS tape of me combing my granddad's hair, and she was like, what do you want to be when you're older? And I was like, I want to be a hairdresser. And from there I didn't really think obviously much of it, being 5, and then from there I wanted to be an astronaut and God knows what else. I wanted to be a dinosaur at one point, still working on that one. But that's where sort of my journey and my passion really started. And I think in school, because having severe dyslexia, I always knew that I needed to go into something creative. And when I was about 13, my mum said to me, you've got to get a job. And obviously anything academic I couldn't really do. So I sort of went round to the local hairdressers and restaurants, and actually went into one of the girls that I went to school with, I went into her dad's hairdressers, and I went in for a trial, and that's really where it began. And I worked every Saturday, did my work experience there, and I just become obsessed with everything hair. And that's where I sort of went on to do the hairdressing, barbering, and that's really where it sort of sparked, and I was like, oh, I can actually do this, and I really enjoy it, and I don't have to do anything written like that. That's where that journey sort of began. And then from there I sort of grew on that, and I went into a barber shop and I learned how to cut men's hair, and I actually found that it was more of a comfortable environment. But more for women in barbering, it's a lot more difficult. It's getting a lot better now, but it was very, very hard to sort of break into the male grooming side of things. And that's sort of where my journey sort of began, really, from there.
That's amazing. I wanted to talk a little bit more about being dyslexic and sort of the importance of having a creative outlet. Because I don't have dyslexia myself, but my mum's has dyslexia, and I'm neurodiverse, so I can sort of relate to it, but there's a lot that I can't relate to, and I'm not going to try and act like I can relate to it. But I find that kids definitely get a lot more support with dyslexia than maybe you do as an adult. And I was wondering how your journey was, feeling like, were you supported as a kid to explore your creativity, and how did that change becoming an adult?
So I would say the way that dyslexia has sort of enabled me to go forward in my career, when I was younger, it gave me that real sort of passion for creativity and a different way of looking at things. I think what really helped was my mum's dyslexic, my uncle's dyslexic, and also there's quite a few people in my family, so my mum picked up on it straight away. I got officially diagnosed when I was 7, and from there I actually had a lot of other things wrong with me. I had double vision as well, which they didn't pick up on for quite a while, which was a nightmare, me playing sports. I've actually got dyspraxia as well, so I'm very, very clumsy, and I think sort of my mum having dyslexia and knowing the telltale signs, she was really encouraging me to take up something creative. So she was so supportive, and my mum's always said to me, you know, you can do anything. She's never told me, like, if you want to go into, you know, being a novelist, you can do it, it's just going to take you a lot more time. So I was really lucky with my journey growing up, but I think definitely as an adult that changes. It's getting a little bit better, but it's stuff like going to the bank or filling out forms. It's really, really difficult to sort of know what you're putting pen to paper to. And a lot of the time, especially now moving forward, it's less customer facing. As things are changing, like for the banks, for example, it's all self-fulfilling checkouts, and you know, you go up to a machine, and for someone that is neurodivergent and suffers with reading, it's really off-putting to go out and do stuff like that, because I always go to a person. I always go, can you help me? And a lot of the time they go, you can go serve yourself, and I'm like, I don't want to do that because I could end up signing my life away before I know it. So I think there's still a lot of improvement, and I think in some ways we're going a bit backwards with some services for people that are neurodivergent. But as a child, I was really supported, but I think in adult life it's, you rely a lot on people around you, your friends, your family, and they're not always there to get something over the line. So it can be a bit frustrating because you want to get something done, but you just need that second pair of eyes really to get it done. I hope that all makes sense.
No, it really does. And like I said, it's from someone that doesn't have dyslexia, it's really beneficial for me as well to sort of learn more about it. What do you think can be done to sort of help adults living with dyslexia? What do you think was sort of lacking? How can people be helped more?
I think anyone living with dyslexia can be helped more. I mean, technology has moved on quite a lot, and I think having tools like, just on your phone, sort of speech to text, it's great. Sometimes it doesn't get it right. I've sent text messages where I told my mum I was going to lunch, and instead it said, I am going to the launch. And she was like, the launch of what? And I was like, no, but I read it, thought that's fine, and sent it across. So I do think there's a lot of aids out there. And I mean, there is the Dyslexia Association as well, which are fantastic. They do a lot of courses for workplaces, but also as well, they give you a lot of tools to sort of say, these are the programs that you can get. Other than that, really, it's, just technology moving forward has massively helped. And I think the more that develops, that will help a lot of people. But I can't really see, there's a lot of things that could change. I think just being more aware, I'll give you an example. I went to an art expo, and myself and Andy went, and I was like, oh great, they've got QR codes, which it's all someone talking to you, it's all audio. So I was like, great. So we went up to the desk and I said, can I have a pair of headphones? And I was fully prepared to buy them, and they went, we haven't got any. And I was like, oh, okay, so how am I supposed to listen to the QR code without everyone else listening while I'm walking around? And they were just like, well, if you haven't got any headphones, that you're just going to have to walk around and listen to it. So the intent was there, but the execution, and I just said, oh, well, if you just put something on the ticket saying, if you have got, a learning difficulty, please bring a set of headphones with you so you can listen. But instead I was a little bit deflated after that. So it's just little changes like that, just being, the intent was there, it was just the execution that could have done a little bit better, because then I felt a little bit like, oh, so then Andy had to read everything to me, which you could tell everyone was looking a little bit weirdly. But so there is things that are happening, it just all takes a bit of time and a bit of understanding.
Yeah, you mentioned just then that, you felt a bit deflated, and I'm guessing that, well, what am I trying to say? Do you think being a barber is almost sort of helps combat that? It must give you such confidence that you found, your purpose, and you got such creative freedom with it. Does it help combat maybe those moments when you feel a bit down because of having dyslexia? Is it sort of a bit of an antidote to that?
I think having dyslexia and being a barber, it's sort of like my superpower, because it is so creative, and all I have to ever worry about paperwork, obviously running the business, obviously there's loads of stuff going on, but I've got support there. The only thing I ever have to do is write someone's name down, and I normally do just say, I've got dyslexia, just spell it to me. It's just easier. But I do feel like it doesn't hold me back, and I feel like I can relate a lot more to my clients, especially if they're going through something, not just with neurodivergence, but just being there for support. And I'm a very caring, I like to think I'm a very caring person, and very detail orientated as well. So I feel like it helps me because I'm so hyper focused on creating the best look for my clients and talking to them about everything. I've got no issues with communication, although sometimes I do sort of say something and think, oh, I shouldn't have really said that. But I think we all do a little bit of that. But I feel like it doesn't hold me back in this field. I feel like if anything, I'm able to problem solve really, really quickly if someone comes in with a haircut that isn't sitting right. So I do feel like it doesn't hold me back, and it allows me to be a lot more creative and showcase like what I can do.
Do you think that's why Andy was telling me everyone that works here in their own way is like neurodiverse? Do you think it's sort of this industry sort of attracts those people because it gives them sort of like this really healthy creative outlet? Like, I think it's so amazing that everyone who works here has like their own way of expressing themselves as well, like through what they do, whether that's upstairs with the fashion or through jewellery. Like, I just think it's really beautiful that everyone here is using this place you've created to help express themselves.
Yeah, I really feel like, you know, what we try to do here at Underfound is we look for people to join the team, not necessarily that are neurodivergent, it's just a really happy accident that happens. We're looking for people that are driven, creative, have other stuff going on as well, that, you know, that are just really, really passionate about what they do, and that's what we really, really look for. We don't really look for people that can write a novel or like can spell everything like amazingly. What we look for is it's more the character and the personality, and I think it's sort of a trait that comes within fashion. You know, you look at anyone like Alexander McQueen, you know, everyone has their demons, whether it be, you know, neurodivergent or, you know, mental health or anything like that. And I think you do have to have that bit of a spark about you to work in any creative industry, because, you know, what you're doing is really, really hard and you have to think outside the box. And I find that most people that I meet, especially in hair, fashion, they have got a bit of neurodivergence, whether it be, you know, they're slightly autistic or they're like they've got ADHD, and I think that just allows them to see things from a different perspective, and that's when you can create some amazing things that you think, oh, I've never seen that before, or I would have never thought of doing it that way. And that's what I absolutely love, is like bringing people in that are just creative and they can be themselves. There's no judgment here. And like, people have mad ideas, but we love it because it's like, well, let's see how we can do that, and then we can work together to problem solve. So that's why I think you don't have to be neurodivergent to work here, but I think you will have to have a little bit of madness, I call it, for a bit of creativity.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. You've kind of touched on my next point, which was the sort of the importance of collaboration. Like, I don't think it matters what creative industry you're in. Collaboration is so important, and I think, like, especially post-COVID, we've kind of lost that ability to collaborate a bit. Like, everyone's sort of just been doing things on their own. But here, you're really trying to harness and celebrate the importance of like collaboration. I was just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, so what we look for when we like to collaborate with a lot of people, whether that be hair, fashion, and it's really important because I think the whole reason for Underfound was to give the voice, and I'm going to quote Andy here, it's the voice for the underdogs. So it's all about bringing people who are independent, working together, giving them that sort of backing in the sense to say, well, you can do this. Because a lot of the time, if you go to, you know, bigger companies, it's a bit like, well, how many followers have you got? How much money have you got behind you? What's your influence like? What are you bringing to the table? Instead of going, you've got fabulous products, you make, you know, you're really, really good at cutting hair and all of these things. It's very profit driven, which obviously business always is. But there's so many talented people out there that don't get a light shone on them because one, they either don't know where to start, or two, they can't afford the opportunity. So what we have brought together is a clothing brand can come to us and, you know, we will work with them to get them in store and give them a bit of guidance as well. So whether that's, okay, have you got product images? No. Okay, right. So the other half of the business, we do, you know, photography, and we can help with that and we can support that. And I think it's so important post-COVID because everyone's become very, very shut off, and it's, no one's, like you said, no one's really working together anymore, and we need more of that because that's the only way that we can all grow together. If, you know, you spend ages working on a project and no one ever gets to see it, what's the point in working on the project? Like, it's enabling people to basically go, this is what I've made, everyone look at it. Like, so yeah, we love to collaborate with people all the time, and it's good, like, adding to network as well, and we love it. We love meeting new people.
Yeah, one thing I noticed, like, going upstairs is, like, you've got such beautiful clothes by brands that I've never heard of, and I don't know how else I would have heard of them if it hadn't been in, like, this kind of setting, if that makes sense. And I feel like, again, like, I'm noticing this trend at the moment. It's almost like the homogenization of fashion, and what I mean by that is sort of everyone's sort of dressing the same. There's, you know, similar trends in, like, music. As a photographer, I'm noticing it really quite a lot. Like, everyone's styles are sort of coming together and merging, and there isn't really that as many incredibly unique voices anymore. But what you're doing here is you're really, like you say, shining a light on brands that otherwise really don't have that platform. And I think it's just so beautiful and so important that other people do the same. It's sort of like celebrating local art in general, even if that is just fashion. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the importance and, like, the impact that supporting, like, smaller local brands has had on the community or people coming in. Like, Faz, for example, was, like, head to toe in brands from upstairs, and it's just amazing to see the impact that a place like this can have.
Yeah, so I think it's really important, really bringing in new brands that, like, no one has really heard about, because not only does it, like I've said before, it puts a spotlight on them, but what we really dive into is we're all about education. So everyone that comes in, we're a store, we're a local business, you know, anyone that comes and shops here, you know, you're looking after not only myself, you know, Andy. We work incredibly hard, and we're two years in, and obviously all our staff as well. You know, you're not just supporting us, but you're supporting Phil, who's a father. You know, he works really, really hard. You're supporting Damo as well, who's also a dad, and he works really, really hard. And, you know, you're making dreams come true, so then they can go and, you know, invest in themselves and go and do, you know, their creative stuff. And what we really focus on in store is it's all about education. So around any of the clothing brands, what we do is, first of all, we do a tour, we educate, we talk about where the garments have been made, who they've been made by, you know, their journey and where they come from, and also as well from a sustainable aspect. We only work with brands that we deem sustainable and that are sustainable, and they've got the proof of that. So we only carry limited stock in store, but we make stuff up to order. So if we haven't got it, we can get it made, and that is literally made by someone by hand, and it's brought into store. So there's no waste, there's nothing like that. And it's all about educating the client and going, do you know where your clothes come from in bigger retailers? Do you know how many units were burnt last year? Do you know where, your hair goes or anything like that? It's educating the customer to sort of say, well, by supporting local, not only are you supporting people that are self-employed, but you're supporting the designers, the artists. They can go on to do other work and work with other people and fuel that creativity. And without it, we'd just all be the same. We'd all be carbon copies of each other. And people do like to dress differently, and people do like to put their own flair on stuff. It's like not everyone has the same haircut or the same cut of jeans. My clients keep telling me, especially like my Gen Zers, they're like, yeah, skinny jeans are out. And I'm not actually wearing skinny jeans today, but I live in skinny jeans. So, it's important for them to come in and tell me what they want to see as well. And I think it's really interesting because we do get a right variety of people that come in all different ages, just that educational piece and going, this is how important it is to support local, but also as well support designers from all over the world, UK based. You're supporting so many people by coming into store. It's not just me and Andy and Damo and Phil, it's everyone else in the wider branch of Underfound.
On the topic of sustainability, Andy told me what you guys do with like your long haircuts, and I think it's absolutely incredible. So could you just briefly just tell me, because it's such a beautiful way of like repurposing something that otherwise is getting thrown in the bin. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when we have a client come in that's got quite long hair, and if it's over around about an inch and a half, what we actually do is we collect the hair, and it's not some weird thing that we do with it. We collect it and put it in a bag, and it gets sent off to a company called Ocean Matters. So hair is fascinating. Obviously our hair gets oily, and it's great for soaking up oil. So it gets sent off to this company in America, and it's weaved into mats like a front door mat that you'd find, and then it's sent out into the ocean to clean up any oil spills. But they use it on roads, they use it all everywhere. So because it's so strong and it takes quite a while for it to biodegrade, they're able to soak up the oil because it's naturally attracted to the hair, and then they can discard of it in a safe environment without it causing any more hassle to wildlife or polluting any of the rivers or anything like that. So it's just something that I really believe more hairdressers, barbers should implement, because otherwise it just goes into landfill and then it just biodegrades over time. But if it can be used, why not use it?
Well, hopefully if there's any hairdressers or barbers watching this, they'll be like, oh, I'm going to check that out. So it's called Ocean Matters.
Ocean Matters, yeah.
Wicked. I wanted to come back to talking about creativity a bit and sort of self-expression. And I think what you guys do so amazingly here is just really letting each person's individuality like really shine through. But it could be quite a tough journey sort of figuring that out on your own. What advice would you give people that are sort of struggling to express themselves and their uniqueness? Because you guys just do it so effortlessly here, but it can be quite tricky to sort of work out how to really express your individual style.
So I would say any advice I would give to someone about being your true self, your own personality, creativity, anything like that, is just surround yourself with people that understand and get you. And it is very, very hard because not everyone's going to understand you and not everyone's going to get you. But I always say just be true to yourself. If something feels right, just do it. Just do it. I've been told so many times in my life by other people that at the time were really important to me, like friends, partners, ex-partners, and anything like that. You can't do something, you can't look that way, you can't do this. And I've always stuck to my guns, and I've been like, no, I'm going to do it now just to annoy you, because why not? So I think as long as you're you're not hurting anyone and you're true to yourself, self-deprivation is better than being miserable. So, you know, it can be very lonely, but you find your right people when you need them. So I would always say to anyone, if you've got an idea and you think it's mad and you tell someone and they go, don't do it, it's crazy, that should spur you on to do it even more, because not everyone will get you and understand you, but you're one idea away from a brilliant idea. So I would say just keep going, express yourself any way that you can, and never feel like you can't do something, because you always can do something. I hope that sort of spurs someone on to go out there and just be themselves and be authentic and create what they want to create.
That's really beautiful. I think that's a really great place to leave that, to be honest. I think that sums everything up really nicely. And it's amazing, because when you were cutting someone's hair earlier, that was what you said. Like, if someone comes in and they're like, I'm thinking about trying this with my hair. What you said was, just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. What's the worst that can happen? Like, you make a few mistakes, you learn from it, right? It's never a failure if you walk away knowing something that you didn't know before. You know, I've had previous businesses, but it's all led me to this moment in time. And Andy will tell you as well, he's had exactly the same thing. We've worked on stuff, it hasn't worked out, but it's all led to the bigger picture, the learnings to open this place. Without those, I don't like calling them failures, without those experiments, maybe this wouldn't exist. So I always say, do it, just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? She says, famous last words.